Yes, you can do a PhD online, but should you? When I first thought about this question, I had an internal rising. I don't know what it was, anger, reflux, but I was like, no, of course you can't do a PhD online. You have to do what I did, which was suffer in a horrible office, which was dark and dingy, and then feel sad for a while. But of course, I think it would be wrong of me to say that there aren't some aspects of a PhD that you could do remotely. Now, remotely and online, I think I'm going to use interchangeably in this video, but there are some subjects that are absolutely not suited to doing a PhD online. Any of the science subjects that are sort of away from coding and computer-based stuff and mathematical modeling, I think has to be done in a university. Like the actual nuts and bolts of the research needs to be done in a university or research institute. But there are some elements that you can do remotely. One of my friends did a PhD in London and his supervisor was in London, but he very rarely went into the lab or the office. He did a lot of his programming outside of the research institute at home or wherever he was. So there is kind of a model that you can say, you know, it is important to have regular contact with your supervisor, but if you can actually do some of it away, remotely, and some people find that very beneficial for their thought process, for thinking, for creativity, which is so important to PhD, and we do not give enough kind of a weighting towards the creative aspect of doing a PhD and allowing our creative juices to flow. Gross. So even though it's not suited for most PhDs, I would argue that there are some types of professionals who get a PhD in the professional PhD track that can benefit from doing a PhD online or remotely. And that is people like medical doctors, like educators who need a PhD to kind of access higher levels of their employment and get pay raises and, you know, go up their ladder in their career, which is absolutely fine. And I think there's an important difference to make here about just doing a PhD online and doing a PhD to access higher pay scales and promotions. And that's because when you are doing a PhD part-time online or remotely, you are still involved in the field. You're still embedded into the important aspects of that job, that role. You're still part of the information economy of that role. Your feet are on the ground. They're, getting information all the time from all of the stuff that's happening around you, and doing a PhD alongside that online, I think is absolutely fine because you're still getting exposure to the environment and the field. Whereas if you are only doing a PhD online and it's like the only thing you do and you don't do it alongside professional experience or other stuff that gets you sort of like involved and integrated and intimately aware of the systems and functions and problems with a particular field, I'm dribbling, then I feel like that would be a bad thing. And I think we're going to be seeing a hybrid model of PhDs in the future where you can do some of it online, remotely, and you can do some of it in the lab. Like there's some things you absolutely have to do and you have to kind of be exposed to get some PhDs, and we can sort of like balance between the two, and I think that's going to be part of the evolution of online learning and offerings of a PhD. But the universities that are currently offering online PhDs, I think you should be very wary of. This video is brought to you by my newsletter. Go check it out at andrewstapleton.com.au/newsletter. The link is in the description. When you sign up, you'll get 5 emails over about 2 weeks. Everything from the tools I use, how to write the perfect abstract, the perfect PhD daily schedule, and more. It's exclusive content available for free only on that newsletter, so go sign up now. So you have to ask yourself, why are some universities offering online PhDs? Now, I would argue the reason they're doing that is to sort of stand out in the market because they are universities that you would not otherwise want to touch with a 10-foot barge pole. Now, I think these online universities are predatory. They only exist, and these PhDs only exist to get your money. A normal PhD should come with a stipend. It should come with a bit of money to support you during your PhD, whether or not that's in exchange for teaching or marking or doing stuff. it does not require you to lay money on the table to get a PhD, whereas these online PhDs, they will be after your money 100%. They want to give you a PhD, a bit of useless paper at the end, but take as much from you as possible while giving you as little as possible. So you have to be very wary when you go online and start searching for online PhDs, and you have to make sure that they are accredited and that the piece of paper that you get at the end is actually going to be worthwhile. It's actually going to be recognized in the place where you want to work or you want to go, because otherwise it's a lot of money and a lot of time for no benefit. If there's one thing I love on this channel, it's talking about PhD problems, the problem with the system. But for all of its problems, there are some great things about actually doing your PhD in person. And what I want to do is just sort of like highlight the most important things that I think you miss out on if you do your PhD online. The first one is out of sight, out of mind. An academic, a PhD sort of supervisor is very busy. If you are not in front of them, hassling them, being sort of like at front of mind, they are going to completely forget about you, I promise. Like if you are not in their office or in their emails or in their kind of corridors regularly, they are going to forget about you because they are so busy, they're so scattered, and it really takes a really dedicated and organized PhD supervisor to keep across a load of PhD students, even if they're in the same building as them. If you're online, it's going to be much harder to get their attention, therefore their help and anything else you need from them. Being at a university is an incredible experience because you don't only get the supervisor, the PhD, the department that sits in the university bubble, and there are tons of resources, physical resources and online resources that you can get at a university. I think the university experience is beneficial for a range of people, and it means that if you're doing it online, you don't get access to those same sort of like university resources, experiences, or access to the same sorts of people and services that you would get if you do it on a campus, for example. So yes, doing it online is going to be even more lonely, and you're going to get even less help, and you're not going to even have the things that you need to do it properly. So it doesn't sound like a good deal, does it? One of the biggest problems that you'll face if you get an online PhD is that other people will not take you seriously. And I'm really kind of trying to be earnest here. I'm not trying to be elitist. I'm not trying to say that, doing part of your PhD online doesn't mean, that you've earned it or that it's valuable. But at the moment, the way the current system is, you will not be taken seriously if you've done the entirety of your PhD online. And that's because, academia is slow moving. It is glacial when it comes to progress. And the problem is these dinosaurs in the upper echelons of academia, they do not value anything that is unfamiliar or scary or confusing to them. So if you say I've got a PhD online, even if it's from, a relatively good university, I really feel like they're going to poo-poo it in a ton of different ways. It's going to make it harder to get grant money if you want to go into academia. It's going to make it much harder to sort of convince people that you are actually valuable to their institution. It's the experience, it's the whole package of the PhD that these people currently value. And by doing it online, I think you're doing yourself a disservice at the moment because, you just won't be taken seriously. And, it's hard enough as it is to convince anyone of the value of a PhD, let alone if it's been done 100% online from an institution that no one has even heard of. And that's unfortunately the raw truth. So there we have it. I think the way it lies at the moment, doing an online PhD is a terrible idea. And that's because it just doesn't offer the same experience, the same access, the same sort of qualification that you would get if you do it completely in person. That said, I really feel like there's a little crack in the market for doing a PhD online. If you're a medical doctor and you want to get your PhD, or you're in education and you want to access different pay grades and sort of like get higher up in your field or your career. If you're in government that requires PhDs to access higher levels of administration or whatever, I think that is so important. And of course, there is a little place, I think, in there for an online PhD because you're still completely involved in that normal working environment. You still have access to the field, to the knowledge, to the people, to, you really understand it in a physical sense. And yeah, that's where I think an online PhD will go. And hybrid will be the first step because there are some things you can do online, but not everything. All right then. You guys, as always, are the real experts in all of this. Let me know what you think about online PhDs in the comments below. Let's help each other out. And also go check out academiainsider.com. That's my project where I've got my ebook, the Ultimate Academic Writing Toolkit, as well as the PhD Survival Guide. And I'll see you in the next video.